When considering the endings of Fallout New Vegas, it might initially seem easy to say that the Caesar's Legion is the evil ending, and that the NCR is a good ending. But then what do we make of the Yes Man, or Mr. House? Well, House is the bad ending, right? He wants to rule as an iron-fisted dictator. As the ending says, Mr. House's Securitron army took control of Hoover Dam and the Strip, pushing both the Legion
and the exhausted NCR out of New Vegas. Mr. House continued to run New Vegas his way, a despotic vision of pre-war glory. The streets were orderly, efficient, cold. New Vegas continued to be the sole place in the wasteland where fortunes were won and lost
in the blink of an eye. But is that really a bad thing? Sure, being a cold city run by a despot sounds bad in principle, but order and efficiency are inherently good things, especially in a world that has to rebuild itself from the ground up. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let me quickly give you some context and recap a few key events from the game so we're all on the same page. Now, I do have a personal pet peeve with video essays that spend half their runtime just regurgitating information in the name of providing context, and they really end up saying nothing meaningful. But in this case, I do need to take a moment to lay some groundwork. Don't worry though, I'll keep it tight. Robert Edwin House is the pre-war founder, president, and CEO of Robco Industries, one of the most technologically advanced corporations in the entire United States before the Great War. A visionary industrialist and a mathematical prodigy, House predicted the coming nuclear exchange and took extraordinary measures to protect Las Vegas by diverting anti-ballistic missiles. Sadly, he did not have the platinum chip in hand as the bombs dropped, meaning he could only save the Las Vegas Strip. Regardless, he managed to protect the Strip and sealed himself away in one of the casinos, the Lucky 38. There, he linked his consciousness to a complex network of computers and life support machines. When he awakens over 200 years later, he uses an army of Securitrons to restore order on the Strip and form alliances with the three families, turning the old Las Vegas into a thriving gambling hub, thus creating New Vegas. Throughout New Vegas, Mr. House hires the Courier to retrieve the Platinum Chip, a lost pre-war data storage device critical to upgrading his Securitron army. The Courier discovers that the chip was stolen by Benny, leader of the chairman at the Tops Casino, who attempted to use it to overthrow House. Once the Courier reclaims the chip, House uses it to activate hidden Securitron bunkers beneath Fortification Hill, granting him a modernized robot army capable of overwhelming any faction in the Mojave. From there, he orders the Courier to secure Hoover Dam, ensuring control of its massive power output, driving both the bureaucratic New California Republic and the barbaric Caesar's Legion out of the region. Depending on the player's choices, the Courier may follow House's plan to completion, allowing him to establish an authoritarian technologically advanced New Vegas, or betray him by disabling or killing him within his stasis chamber. From all this and more of the endings that you can hopefully gather from context, we can get a very good idea of what New Vegas under House would truly look like. The best way to describe it would be a technocratic autocracy, tight corporate governance, widespread surveillance, and licensing. Order first, growth second, and of course, charity would be last. The priorities of House would more or less fall in this order. Firstly, absolute security on the Strip and Freeside. Secondly, tunneling Hoover Dam power to New Vegas first. Thirdly, reopen and monetize pre-war industry and research. And lastly, keep great powers, in this case the NCR and the Legion, at arm's length, as they would ideologically oppose this regime. And with House's Securitron army, that wouldn't be an issue. However, the Brotherhood of Steel does represent a bigger issue, and it's likely why House chose to eradicate them, rather than let them be like he does with the NCR and the Legion. To House, the Brotherhood represents more than just a militarized group of relic worshippers. They were the single greatest existential threat to his vision of New Vegas. The Brotherhood's creed is built upon technological monopolization. They hoard, they restrict, and they control pre-war technology rather than utilize it to rebuild society. House, by stark contrast, sees progress as humanity's only salvation. His entire regime, from the Securitron army to the Hoover Dam systems, depend on the free and pragmatic use of technology. From his perspective, the Brotherhood are not merely ideologues, but a disease in civilization's body, liable to attack the very organs that keep it alive. They can't be reasoned with, they can't be bought, and therefore in House's eyes they can't be permitted to exist in a world governed by logic and efficiency. Their destruction, therefore, is not cruelty, it's a surgical act of self-preservation. In House's mind, Their annihilation is a necessary price of progress. Now, I just want to go on a brief tangent, a theoretical one, to consider just how far House's ideology could extend. Because all of this brings us to a crucial question. How would he deal with the Brotherhood of Steel outside of his borders? For example, Elder Maxon's Brotherhood is vastly different from the Mojave chapter. They are ruthless, they're expansionists, and they view the technology from the old world that House wants to commandeer as evils to be kept away from humanity. This is highly theoretical, but in the event that both House and Elder Maxon's Brotherhood both succeed, they would be the two superforces in post-apocalyptic America. They would both have vast arsenals, and they would both be each other's ideological enemies. Diplomacy doesn't seem likely in this hypothetical future, but should it inevitably fail, it's easy to imagine that House, with his limitless energy and automated production of a powerful, soulless Securitron army, would win in the short term. In the long run, it's hard to say, as a united East Coast Brotherhood, especially if they work with the NCR, should they still exist, could surround and suffocate New Vegas. The ironic thing is, if Maxon ever marched west and forced House into an arms race, history would come full circle. Two heirs of the old world, one corporate, the other militarized, would once again wage war in the name of saving humanity, each convinced their vision was the cure to the world's decay. One would seek to command technology, the other would seek to contain it. And in their struggle, the frontier would crumble under the weight of progress repeating itself. It would be the old world reborn, not through democracy or barbarism, but through the collision of two absolute certainties: reason and conviction, logic and faith, destroying everything between them. In the end, as the desert burned and the sky glowed with the light of familiar ruin, one truth would echo through the Mojave: war. War never changes. With that tangent out of the way, let's get back on track to see exactly how House influences the Mojave, specifically in the immediate aftermath of House's victory at Hoover Dam. At this point, the Mojave entered a period of stability and centralization unseen since before the Great War. The first and foremost visible change is political. All decision-making authority collapses inward toward one singular node. NCR and Legion influences are expelled, the Brotherhood is eliminated, and the Strip's crime families are domesticated into what are essentially corporate subsidiaries of House's will. What emerges is a monopolar system: one ruler, one doctrine, and one vision. Security saturates the Mojave. Upgraded Mark II Securitrons patrol every major location, transforming the Strip, Freeside, and the Dam into fortified zones of absolute order. In this future, raider activity dies out almost overnight. Economically, New Vegas experiences an immediate boom. With Hoover Dam under his control, House directs power and water towards the Strip, kickstarting industry and drawing caravans from all over the West. The lights of the Strip burn brighter than ever before, and construction projects resume under strict, robotic oversight. Trade surges, tourism probably explodes, and for a time, it seems House has done what no one else could. He's resurrected civilization. Yet, this prosperity comes with strings attached. Every business, caravan, and casino license now runs through House's bureaucracy. The free market survives, yes, but only under his supervision. Efficiency rises and corruption plummets, but true economic independence slowly disappears. The result is a city that gleams on the surface, even as it quietly becomes a technocratic monopoly. Socially, life in the Mojave transforms. Crime rates plummet, but justice disappears with them, replaced by algorithmic punishment delivered through a Securitron's muzzle. Civil liberties become a luxury, tolerated only insofar as they don't interfere with House's calculations. The followers of the apocalypse find themselves marginalized, stripped of any political influence they once might have had, and monitored whenever they overstep their humanitarian role. Make no mistake, House doesn't particularly care what people get up to in the day-to-day.
I have no interest in abusing others, just as I have no interest in legislating or otherwise dictating what people do in their private time.
Like any CEO, he's not interested in the beliefs of his citizens, so religious organizations such as the Followers of the Apocalypse or the Church of Adam can continue to exist as long as they don't affect the bottom line. Similarly, the kings lose their sovereignty over Freeside as Securitrons patrol their streets, dissolving what little independence remained. The Mojave becomes safe, eerily safe. Fear maintains order, while spectacle maintains morale. And under House's rule, spectacle would be abundant. Music, art, and gambling flourish. Culture itself becomes a profitable industry of distraction, ensuring that the people never question who holds the reins. Technologically, House's rule ushers in a renaissance. Pre-war factories would restart, data networks would flicker back online, and robot foundries resume production. His administration achieves in months what the NCR bureaucracy couldn't in decades. Within a single generation, the Strip begins to resemble the old world again. Only this time, it's one man's world alone. But the long-term consequences of this order reveal the full cost of House's perfection. Over time, New Vegas ossifies into a technocratic autocracy, efficient yet fragile. With no legislature, no elections, and no successors, the entire system revolves around one immortal figure, sealed inside a decaying life support pod. House's mind governs flawlessly, until the day it doesn't. His death, or even a single mechanical failure, could collapse the entire regime overnight. Like any sole proprietorship, he answers to no one but maintains all the risk. In his pursuit of rational permanence, House builds the most advanced, yet least resilient government in the post-war world. Socially and economically, the Mojave would evolve into a tale of two worlds, the prosperous core and the stagnant periphery. The Strip becomes a glittering monument to order, powered by Hoover Dam's energy and guarded by tireless, soulless machines. The residents of the Strip would enjoy unprecedented comfort, clean water, and uninterrupted power. But beyond those neon gates, towns like Novak, Prim, and Goodsprings survive as shadow economies, stable but starved of attention. House's policies bring security, not equality. And over the decades, class lines would harden. Engineers, scientists, and executives form a new elite, a technocrat caste chosen for their utility to House's vision, while the working poor are confined to service, labor, maintenance, and manual upkeep. As the years pass, we can imagine that House's state becomes the nucleus of an entirely new geopolitical order. Should the NCR and the Legion continue to exist, both of them would be exhausted by war. They would come to view New Vegas as a neutral ground, the glittering Switzerland of the wasteland. Trade resumes under House's terms, and his credit becomes the standard currency of the Mojave. Technological supremacy, once the Brotherhood's domain, now belongs entirely to him. With his Securitron army untouchable and his scientific monopolies intact, Mr. House becomes the unchallenged superpower of the post-war West. Yet, beneath this triumph lies a quiet moral decay. The Mojave prospers, but its people have traded liberty for logic. Unwillingly. They live longer, safer lives, but smaller ones. Freedom of choice fades into curated efficiency. The West Coast Brotherhood's destruction, while strategically sound for Mr. House, removes the last institution capable of challenging House's monopoly on knowledge itself. Innovation becomes directed, not discovered. Progress continues, but only down the path he allows. And as generations pass under the same blinking eyes of the Lucky 38, history itself bends to his narrative. The chaos of the old world becomes a myth, the moral justification for an eternal machine state. In the end, House's autocracy achieves what no post-war government before him could: a self-sustaining civilization, free from decay, corruption, and inefficiency. Yet it does so by stripping away the very chaos that defines humanity. His rule ensures peace, prosperity, and order, but at the cost of freedom, diversity, and moral growth. For the average citizen, is the best of all possible worlds, so long as you never ask whose world it truly is. With all that, I think to answer whether or not Mr. House's ideology is the evil one, or in fact the best one, comes down to what philosophical stance you decide to take. To start, you would need to see him not just as a man of technology, but as a philosopher of control. His worldview is rooted in a kind of rational humanism, the belief that human civilization is worth saving, but only through the guidance of superior intellect and reason. In his mind, democracy failed because it placed the fate of civilization in the hands of emotional, short-sighted, and fallible beings. What humanity truly needs then, he believes, is not liberty, but direction.
If you want to see the fate of democracies, look out the windows.
And that is what makes him in many ways the purest embodiment of the Hobbesian ideal, the Leviathan brought to life. Thomas Hobbes argued that in the state of nature, life was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In a world without central authority, humanity descends into chaos, each man a threat to the other. The only escape, Hobbes would claim, was through submission to a sovereign, a figure powerful enough to impose peace through fear. That, in essence, is what Mr. House becomes, the post-apocalyptic Leviathan, who looks upon the Mojave's disorder, the raiders, the chems, the tribal wars, and sees proof of the Hobbes prophecy. Civilization cannot govern itself, it must be governed. The NCR's democracy, in his eyes, is simply a polite version of anarchy. Bureaucracy disguised as order, one election away from collapse. And the Legion, for all its discipline, is nothing more than barbarism systemized, a state of nature painted in red and gold. House views both as symptoms of the same disease, human irrationality. To him, the NCR represents the failures of Enlightenment idealism, a belief system during the age of Enlightenment that emphasized reason and individual liberty, viewing ideals like natural rights, progress, and equality as fundamental to society. In House's perspective, they are a republic in name only, bogged down by corruption, greed, and incompetence. Their expansionism mirrors the old world's self-destructive ambition, the same ambition that burned civilization to ash. They claim to stand for democracy, yet exploit and annex every frontier they touch. Under the NCR, the Mojave would drown in taxes, red tape, and graft before a single farm saw clean water. And to House, that is moral cowardice disguised as virtue. Democracy as a delaying mechanism for decline. By contrast, Caesar's Legion is Hobbes taken to the brutal extreme. It rejects democracy altogether and embraces domination as a natural order of man. Caesar, like House, believes in absolute authority, but whereas House worships reason, Caesar worships violence. The Legion imposes order through fear and cruelty, forging stability from terror. Yet, in Caesar's philosophy, reason and progress are irrelevant. His empire looks backwards to a mythologized Rome that never truly existed. By contrast, House is looking to the stars. The Legion promotes strength for strength's sake, an aesthetic of control without substance. House sees this as the most primitive kind of governance, autocracy born of superstition rather than intellect. Placed between these two extremes, Mr. House would fashion himself as the rational alternative. In his eyes, he is the philosopher king of the wasteland, an ideal ruler who possesses both absolute philosophical knowledge and political skill, described by Plato in the Republic. His autocracy is not built on blood or conquest, but on systems and algorithms. Where Caesar enslaves bodies, House enslaves inefficiencies. Where the NCR drowns in procedure, House executes a perfect calculus of governance. His rule is not an emotional dictatorship, but a mechanical one, cold, impartial, and entirely self-justifying. And yet, even with this rational perfection lies a deeper question. Does his vision truly free humanity from the state of nature, or does it merely reframe it? Hobbes believed the sovereign ends the war of all against all by monopolizing violence. In that sense, House achieves precisely that. But the cost is permanent dependence. Under his rule, citizens no longer fear one another, but they do fear the machine. The chaos of human nature is gone, but so too is its vitality. In a strange inversion of Hobbes, House replaces the brutality of nature with the sterility of reason. The wasteland's anarchy becomes an algorithm. Where Hobbes saw submission as the price of peace, Jean-Jacques Rousseau imagined another path. Rousseau believed that in the state of nature, humanity was not evil but innocent, corrupted only by civilization's inequality and greed. His ideal society was one where man remained free, guided not by fear but by the general will. If Hobbes was the father of order, Rousseau would be the prophet of freedom. In this light, House represents everything Rousseau warned against, a system where human beings become instruments of another's design, stripped of moral agency in the exchange for comfort. Under House, Rousseau's social contract is rewritten into corporate contracts, efficiency traded for consent. When judged through Rousseau's lens, House's world may be stable, but it's not virtuous. The NCR at least gestures towards the general will, flawed though it is, while the Legion crushes it entirely. House, however, erases it, replacing collective will with computational will. His citizens no longer choose, they comply. His perfection is total, but so is its alienation. Humanity survives, not as moral agents, but as variables in a simulation. And yet this is precisely how Mr. House justifies his rule. His worldview extends beyond mere politics. It's a form of transhumanism, the belief that technology must liberate mankind from the constraints of flesh, morality, and chaos itself. House has already transcended the body. His mind is preserved, his life eternal, his reason unclouded. In his view, he is the next stage of human evolution, the mind unchained from emotion, the ruler immune to corruption, the philosopher made machine. To him, humanity's failure lies in its refusal to evolve. Democracy keeps man ordinary, tyranny keeps him barbaric. Only through technological mastery and rational order can civilization reach its final form. In that sense, House wouldn't see himself as a tyrant. He sees himself as a savior from human nature. The world before the war died because people were free to be foolish. The world after it will endure only if people are guided by something wiser than themselves. He is, in his mind, the bridge between the chaos of nature and the perfection of logic. But whether you call that salvation or enslavement depends entirely on what you think humanity is supposed to be. If you believe, as Hobbes did, that peace is the highest good, then House's New Vegas is the end of history, a world at last free from fear of humanity. But if you believe, like Rousseau, that the essence of humanity lies in its freedom, then House's New Vegas is not a utopia at all. It's the ultimate prison, a cage so efficient, so beautiful, and so rational that no one inside ever remembers they were locked away. In my eyes, the world of New Vegas as the player enters it is exactly as Hobbes would describe: solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. And Rousseau's idea that civilization corrupts man and in the state of nature we are innocent is largely contradictory to what you see in the Fallout universe with its raiders, with its chems, with its tribes. But I will leave the final say up to you. In the end, Mr. House's New Vegas stands as both monument and mirror. It gleams with the light of human triumph, yet hums with the silence of human absence. The streets are safe, the power flows endlessly, and civilization endures. But it endures under glass. What began as a dream of salvation becomes a perpetual experiment, one in which humanity survives only insofar as it obeys the logic of its creator. Looking across the Mojave, the contrast could not be clearer. To the west, the NCR clings to democracy, bloated, corrupt, but human. To the east, Legion exalts conquest, cruel, primitive, but also human. And between them stands House, mechanical, perfect, and utterly beyond the reach of either. His city hums in defiance of entropy itself, as if to prove that the wasteland can be mastered not by faith or politics, but by will alone. Yet beneath the perfection lies an uncomfortable truth. Progress stripped of empathy becomes its own kind of decay. The neon brilliance of New Vegas is not the light of dawn, it's the glow of preservation of a civilization frozen at the moment of its rebirth, forever guarded by machines that neither love nor hate what they protect. Perhaps this is what the old world wanted, an order so rational that nothing irrational, nothing human could ever break it again. And so the Mojave remains balanced between three visions of the world: the NCR's bureaucratic dream, the Legion's iron order, and House's immaculate logic. Each claims to have escaped the state of nature, yet each in their own way circles back to it, whether through greed, violence, or control. Civilization survives, yes, under House it may even thrive, but whether it has truly lived again, that's another question entirely.